Your Fitness Business Podcast Snapshot. What to consider before raising your membership prices. How and why Rich chose to increase prices by 25%. And 3 tips that owners must do when deciding to implement an increase. All of that and more coming up in today's show. You're listening to the industry's leading fitness business podcast for owners and managers. This month's interviews are brought to you by our podcast partner, MyZone. MyZone is the member engagement tool that is proven to improve your member retention. To find out more, go to myzone.org. Welcome along, friends. Thank you for joining me. My special guest this week is the CEO of Chi Fitness, Rich Hutson. Rich is a career lifer in the fitness industry, starting as a personal trainer in Canada. He moved to Australia and spent 10 years working with the biggest brands, including Healthlands and Fitness First. In 2001, he was given the opportunity to be part of the senior executive team that took Fitness First across 6 Asian countries and to over 100 clubs. He also spent 6 years as the sales director for Fitness First Europe, overseeing 6 countries and 210 clubs. In 2016, he left to open up Fire Fitness, the first boutique fitness clubs in Malaysia. 2017 saw him take his biggest challenge, the CEO role at Chi Fitness, where he was instrumental in turning the business around and taking it to sale in less than 15 months. In 2020, Rich starts a new role as the Business Development Manager for Evolution Wellness, and he'll be leading their brand new, low-cost, high-value brand called GoFit. We are about to dive into this week's interview with Rich, but first, here's a message from our friends at MyZone. MyZone is a member engagement tool built by the industry and for the industry to help boost retention. Learn more at myzone.org. FBP family, we have an exciting competition running throughout November and December 2019. You could win a pair of Bose sunglasses with micro speakers integrated into the arms of the frames, meaning that you can listen to the Fitness Business Podcast without having to use headphones or earphones. They are super cool and you are going to look awesome. No matter where in the world you are, just subscribe to our incredible show notes and tell us in 50 words or less why you love the Fitness Business Podcast. Just go to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com/win for all the details. Enjoy this week's interview with my special guest, Rich Hutson. Rich, welcome along. Absolutely thrilled to have you on the show today.
Thanks very much, Chantal. Glad to be here. Can't wait to get started.
So our focus for today is on the topic of how to raise your membership prices, and you are very much talking from first-hand experience here. So tell us, what should a club owner consider before they actually decide to increase their membership prices?
Okay, well, there's a couple things that you really need to work around and think about. I think number one is you really need to know your market. I'm going to use obviously my own experiences. So when I talk about Chi as a whole, I was coming into the business and I'd already had some experience in consulting with them. And a little background about them is they had the leadership team before I got there had made a decision to drop their prices and try and work into more of the budget sector. But the reality was, when you looked at the business, it wasn't a budget business, meaning a true budget business. And I would say a true budget business is a very low staffing model, generally doesn't have a Group X offering. If it does, it could be virtual. And of course, you're not offering towels and all the bits and pieces that, would make it a true budget offering. So let me start there. I think that's the most important thing is you've got to make sure that, whatever part of the market you're very clear as to what your offer is. And it was not a budget offering. I felt that at that point in time that we needed to really find a way to increase our pricing And what I did know is that our competition around us was not anywhere near our current pricing. So what we had an opportunity to do was to close that gap to our closest competitor. And I think when you're looking at competition, you have to, there's not a big price gap that you can play with your competitors. So I knew that so for example, they had gone down to 99 ringgit a month. And our next competitor was at around about 160 a month. I felt that gap was way too big for our offering. It really came down to that. And knowing that with a lot of our competitors, they weren't as good as us at 99. So that was one of the very big movements that, or very big opportunities that I saw, was to close that gap. So we virtually went from some of the clubs, and they were all different on home prices, but they virtually went from roughly around 99 up to 149. And it was a massive gap, but it was just what the opportunity was in front of us, and that our club was not a budget offering. I would say that's the very first thing. I would say the second thing is when I looked at the numbers, I just did not see how we were going to get that many members. Chantel, and it's all good and well to say that, yeah, look, you know what, I'm gonna lower my pricing. I'm gonna get more people through the door. But, fitness is not, the industry is not getting less competitive. It's getting more competitive. And, getting new members on board isn't easy. So I don't see that happening a lot in the industry. In my experience, I don't see where people are lowering their price and getting a lot more people through the door by doing that. Honestly, I just don't see many examples of that. But I do see examples where people are putting in the work, increasing their offering and giving a better offering and being able to increase their pricing. Is really that simple. When I did the calculations and I looked at the run rate, I just didn't see how we were going to turn the business around and make it profitable. So it was a little bit of, okay, guys, this is the opportunities that we have, and this is the way we're going to have to head.
Yeah, so it was a necessity by the sounds of it. So what I'd like to do, Rich, is kind of dive into this whole thing in a lot more detail. First of all, starting off with the actual percentage increase. I mean, you were mentioning the price difference between like the 99 and then going up to the 149. How did you actually arrive at a figure of a 25% increase?
Well, and that's rough numbers because some of them are in different places. They have different home prices, but our all club usage came up to that. So our next competitor, their pricing was 160 a month. So when I looked at their offering, I felt that our offering was as good or better than theirs. So I thought, well, it's very easy for me. I'll go slightly less, and that gives us a price advantage. And as long as we're giving as good or better an offering, I think that puts us in a really good position. A lot of it is gut feel, Chantel. It really is, The other thing that I look at is I believe that you have to be number one or at least number two in your part of the market. And of course, you've got the high end, you've got the boutiques, you've got some middle, you've got low end. And within those, I think you really need to work to be number one and number two. Now, what does that mean? Because that's a pretty broad statement and everybody talks about it. I have a little calculation which I do, and basically where I look at the clubs, I do a 5-kilometer radius. And I look at in that 5-kilometer radius and I see who is a competitor within that 5-kilometer radius for us. I also look at the membership base, and we try to look at how many people have got an all clubs use and a home club use, meaning they're using 2 clubs, obviously. But the key with that 5-kilometer radius is that in Asia, the traffic is so bad that people are not going to save, a few bucks to spend 25 minutes going out of their way from home or work. And one thing that is absolutely true in our business, I don't care what anybody says, this is still a business of location. And if you have a great location, you've got a head step above everybody else. So I work within a 5-kilometer radius, and I look at our competition with that radius, and I want to be number 1 to number 2 within that 5-kilometer radius. And it really comes down to that, is where does our pricing sit? Is our offering as good or better than anybody else? If it's not, then we have to work and make sure that it is, because lowering your price and being within the same space of that 5-kilometer radius, ultimately, if it's not as good, once again, what I have experienced, this is only my own personal experience, is people will pay a little bit more to get better service, clean clubs, and all the rest of that stuff.
Rich, I'm going to ask you in a second in regards to some more specifics in relation to like the rollout timeline and details around that. But I'm interested to know this 25% increase that you applied to membership prices, did that affect your current members in any way, or was it just applied to new members joining the business?
Yeah, good question. So we did not apply that to our current membership base. And in my experience with Fitness First, you have to be very careful about increasing current membership prices. And, I'll honestly say this, and most of us, the club owners, will sit here and agree. And we've done ourselves no favors, I think, in many ways, because unfortunately, in many areas and countries and regions, a lot of members believe that you shouldn't raise their price, and they believe that if they're faithful members, that they should get a reduction in price. And we know the reality is our staff costs increase, our energy costs increase, our rent increases, we have to pay more commissions. And you have to find a way to increase pricing. But there was nothing in the CHI contracts at the time which allowed us to do so. So we changed that going forward, that there would be a price increase dependent on the index, and it would be every 2 to 3 years. So that allowed us to go forward from that point, and at least people were acknowledging and agreeing that yes, there will be price increase coming up. So our very first price increase to our members is actually going in this month, which is roughly about 2.5 years.
There you go. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
So as far as the logistics of this actually went, Rich, give us a bit of an insight into the timeline that it took from when you made this decision to when you actually rolled out the price increase, and if there's anything kind of interesting or significant that you did or that you changed for the business, maybe even to the point of, the way that you marketed it. Can you just give us a little bit of a look at that time and how it rolled out?
Sure. So when I took the role, I was actually working in Dubai, and I was communicating because I'd done some consulting work with CHI the previous year. So I had a really good understanding of the business. And I'd lived in Malaysia for 10 years, and I'd gone to Dubai for 6 months, and I had a quick 6 months there with a business and decided that it wasn't right for me. So when the CHI opportunity came, I was communicating with some of the team members inside. And so I knew the area pretty well. And I wish I could tell you something really smart, but I can't. I really do. I'm going to tell you that it was more out of necessity when I looked at where the business was, and just some of those things that I outlined. That 25% increase was a price where I felt we could be successful, and I felt we had no competitors around us, and also with where our clubs were placed. I didn't believe that it would affect the new join members coming in. Now, in reality, there's only one group that you need to really get on board when you increase your prices. Well, there's two groups really, but number one is your membership consultants and your team. And because the difference is when you sell a really cheap membership, your membership consultants or who's ever selling your product, they get in really bad habits. And instead of talking about the product, they start to discuss the discount, and they go straight to the price. And that's okay if it's peanuts. But even then, you'll get challenges. So what I wanted to do was, we did a lot of training beforehand, was to make sure that our consultants understood, what we were going to be moving to and how we needed to change in the way that we were selling the product. But the other thing that we did is we did a massive closeout on the old pricing. So we told everybody under the sun with a ton of social media that we would be increasing prices at the end of the month. And what that did, the business, as I said, wasn't heading in the right direction. It gave us a massive, massive closeout on our old pricing, which gave us a huge head start into the budgets. But it also gave the guys a lot of confidence, and it made them feel good about where they were. We then extended the closeout one more time, which gave us another batch of members and another good head start. But more than anything, it got everybody feeling good, earning commission again. And by then, it gave us time to really train and how to sell the increase in the prices. And through that training and that intense overseeing of that, it was phenomenal, because we didn't skip a beat in that first or the second half of that first month where we'd ended the old prices, and we hit budget. And I'm probably telling people something they know, but it gave our membership consultants confidence. Mm. It gave our clubs confidence. And they looked at each other and they'd hit budget, and they hadn't hit budget in a long time. And they hit budget, while increasing the prices. And it allowed them to say, hey man, our club is worth this, this is the right pricing. If we hadn't have hit budget, if we had have, missed by a long shot, then we would have been in a tough position. Because, I think that's the people, or that's the team that you have to convince more than anybody.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I'm interested to understand a little bit more about the training, but also how you ensured that the staff really supported the initiative. And obviously, as you said, like hitting that budget and obviously getting their incentive is going to really boost their confidence. You mentioned that, previously they had gone through a period where they were just selling on price, selling on discount, and then obviously they needed to shift to sell on benefits that are associated with the facility. Did you lose any of your sales staff over that time? Did you have to do a bit of a refresh and bring in some fresh blood, or did the training that you put them through adequately prepare them for this new change?
Yeah, that's a good question. We didn't lose any of our sales team, actually.
Wow.
Number one, because our closeout on our old pricing was massive. I think we did 150% of our sales budget. So these guys pocketed a lot of money.
It's a good start.
It's a good way to keep your team. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I don't know if I made it very clear, but then when we started the next month, we rolled it out for another 2 weeks because we felt we could just get a bit more growth out of it, and we did. And that, of course, gave them a lot of confidence. But teaching sales is really about, just getting really focused and drilling and scripting. And I changed the scripts around a little bit just to that is probably my passion, and my strong point is the sales part. But what was happening as well, and I'm talking a lot about commissions and money, but ultimately that drives everybody. We know that there's got to be a reward at the end of the tunnel. And our club managers at the time weren't making any commissions. And for whatever reason, the leadership team previous to me had decided that because they weren't in a good position, they were going to reduce, commissions for the club managers and so forth. I actually increased them because the guys that are leading the ship, they're the ones that are going to drive the business and make it work. And so we put some really healthy commissions in for those guys, and they were basically just focused on new join member acquisition and net member movement and our PT results, but mostly around the new join member acquisition for this first period of time. And the reason I did that was because I really wanted them to put their heart and soul into making sure that they hit these budgets. And I knew that if they did that, it would give them the confidence that the pricing was right. Because I knew the pricing was right. I knew the opportunity was there. I just had to get them over the hump. And it's amazing what a little confidence can do for people when you get into a room and you're having your sales launch and you've got your team and they're patting each other on the back and they've earned money and they're feeling good. And, you can do as many calculations as you want and and all the rest of it. But winning is magic, in our business. And when teams are winning and when they feel good and when they're earning money, it just creates an incredible vibe in your business. And I go back to good to great. You talk about the flywheel principle, which is, I'm sure if you remember what that is about. It's really tough to get the flywheel going, but once you get it going, do everything you can to keep it going. And I use that principle here.
Rich, I'm going to throw you a bonus question. I haven't briefed you on this one, but it's
Okay.
I'm wearing my marketing hat for a second because I'm so fascinated by how this was portrayed externally. And that is, when you took this new price to market, was there any changes in the way that you actually promoted the business? Was there any changes in everything through from your website to your social media to the photography? Like, did anything change during this period, or was everything as it should be? It's just that it was at a lower price point.
Yeah. Well, there's always a lot of, there's never one magic pill, is there? You're right. And I think with our team, when I came in, there was a number of things we had to do. We had to really get our head office team right, so that we could make sure we were supporting the clubs. And that's probably a different conversation in itself. But our marketing, we really wanted to change the way we were perceived, because we had our competitors would be, Fitness First at the time, and another group called Celebrity. Celebrity offers incredibly group X classes. Fitness First is, kind of the very serious fitness offering. So we decided, it wasn't my idea. I had a great team working with me. They're just phenomenal. And my marketing manager at the time said, we should be kind of the funny fitness guys who would take ourselves a little less seriously. And we started to build our marketing plan around that with a lot of funny videos, and things like that. And I think, people really took to us here in Malaysia anyways. I think that was important. And the other thing we did, we stopped promoting price, and we started to promote a lot of videos, workout blogs, different things like that, so that we got away from that price-based offering, which I think was incredibly important for what we did on a marketing side. And, your team, they love it. We started doing a lot more on social media. We got a really good group work behind us because we had very small head office. And wanted to keep our head office costs down. So we outsourced our marketing, and we got a really good group working for us who really got what we were trying to do. And we hadn't had a really big social media impact or hadn't had a lot of work around social media or done a lot through it. So that certainly helped with what we were doing on the marketing side.
Awesome. Thank you for taking on that bonus question. So, listening to everything that you went through during this period and undertaking this initiative, I get the impression that you well and truly ticked every box. So I guess I'm interested to know, if you went through all of this again, would you do anything differently?
You know what? I thought about that, and I can honestly tell you that I was really lucky, And as I go back to my statement, make your own luck, I knew what the business, I knew the business inside out. I knew my competitors. I knew the people inside my business. I knew my numbers, and I knew if I didn't do it, that we wouldn't get to be in a position where we are today. And my briefing from my shareholders was, Rich, we need to get investment, and this is the time frame in which we need to do it in. And, sometimes you just got to be brave. You really do. You got to be brave, and you have to be ready to fail, but you have to really dig in and you have to be clear on what the issues are. And Mike Balfour, who's another a mentor of mine and the original owner of Fitness First, I'm sure you know him well. He told me something that I'll never forget. And he said, Rich, spend 90% of the time focusing and making sure that you understand what the problem is, and the solutions are always easy. And I love that, man. I use that every day, in questioning my team about issues at the club, because a lot of times you'll apply fixes that they're the wrong fix, So I did my homework, and that was probably the thing that gave me the confidence the most to do that. And so I probably wouldn't change much.
I absolutely love that quote. That is brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, well, we only have one more thing left to do, and that is to wrap everything up with our Fitbispiration. We're about to hear those Fitbispiration tips from Rich, but first here's a message from our friends at Gym Sales. Gym Sales allows you to plan, implement, and monitor a proactive sales strategy that's automated and uniform. You can give your sales team the tools they need to capture, nurture, and convert new members, which means it's easier than ever before to grow your member base. Make sure you head over to gymsales.net to find out more information. Now let's go back to our interview with Rich, where he's going to share 3 tips that owners must do when deciding to increase their membership prices.
Okay, so number one is, and Australia is an incredibly competitive market, or in the US and so forth, in Asia becoming incredibly competitive, is if you're not number one, or goodness me, you're a close number 2, and you're part of the market, you better get there pretty quick, or things aren't going to be good. And so, it's getting it's getting even more and more competitive. So you're offering, and it has to be clear. It has to, within that 5-kilometer radius, you have to be number 1 or number 2 in your offering. I think that's simply the most important thing, and determining, what your price rise or what your price should be. I'd say that's number 1. Number 2 is you have to train your team. You have to continually drill them. And being an old sales advocate, I know it works. I know it works. It's always worked. People talk about scripting, whether it should be in or shouldn't be in. But at the end of the day, I teach every single salesperson who works with me a script. And the reason I teach them a script is because a lot, and I speak for the people here in Asia, they struggle with fitness. It's new to them. And there's a lot of people that work in our industry that don't have a huge background in fitness. So if you understand a script and you know it like the back of your hand, it allows you to listen and to ask great questions. And I'll refer that back to one of the things I said is everything counts, everything counts, everything counts. And when your team is selling, people are making a buying decision ultimately around that consultant, whether that consultant is able to, get them to make a buying decision that day, or whether they can't. And because the product is good, and if somebody comes down to see it, spends the time to drive, to find the place, etc., there's 60% there. So if your consultants aren't, getting people started at around the 60, 70% clip, then something's wrong. So that would be the second thing. And the third thing I would say is be brave. Lowering your prices is the easy way to do it. Raising your prices is, there's less people competing at a higher price point. But once I go back to knowing what your offering is. I had a good conversation with somebody the other day, and they said, we were talking about having staff or no staff in a club. And I said, ultimately, if your service offering is poor, you're better off having no staff, because people come in with an expectation. And when they see that person that's sitting at the front desk, they got their head down in their phone, they expect a high, And it doesn't matter if it's low cost, high cost. You're better off having nobody there, if that's what you're going to do. So I'll probably sound like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it really is incredibly important. Know where your product sits, know what your product is, and know what your competitors are offering and what the value is on that price point. And be brave. Be number 1, be number 2 within that market space.
Rich, I absolutely love those 3 takeaways to finish up on today. It perfectly wraps up our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and for really giving us such important insights and first-hand experience into what you went through with the business, and so many great lessons for all of the FBP family to really learn how they can go through and raise their membership prices as well. So thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thanks, Chantel. I appreciate it. I hope it all made sense, and I hope people get something out of it. And they can always contact me. No problem at all. I love sharing some of the insights in what I do, and so that's no problem at all either.
We would be so grateful for that. So we'll make sure that we pop your contact details in today's show notes. Thank you once again, Rich.
All the best. Thank you.
Here's a message from our podcast partner, One Fit Stop. We'd like to thank our sponsor, One Fit Stop, for their support, and we highly recommend all fitness professionals go to onefitstop.com to find out how their software will enable you to take control of day-to-day management in your fitness business. One Fit Stop's scheduling, client management, programming, and payment collection tools will set your business up for success.
Precore Quickfire 5.
This week's Precore Quickfire 5 guest is the Head of Customer Experience from SC Fitness, Jose Teixeira. Warm welcome to my special guest today. Jose, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Let's start off with our Precore Quickfire 5. Tell us, why do you do what you do?
Well, my life is all about sports and fitness since I was 6 years old. So I'm just... I just love to improve people's lives and to be able to do something in sports and fitness.
And what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
Well, I always work or study from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. in the morning. So that's my quality time. This is a special time for me. So that's one of the things that I found very useful in my life.
That's amazing. And I might just take this opportunity to tell everyone that we are actually recording at 11:15 p.m. in Portugal time. So that's quite amazing, Jose. So what, if you're studying or working till 1 a.m., what time do you start your day?
7 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I have just enough time to get some rest, but I need some time to think about the business, not only to execute, but also to think a little bit and to study, because our customer experience department needs a lot of input and a lot of brain into it.
Of course. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. And are there any apps or systems that you use to stay in control of your workload?
It's very simple. It's all around my Outlook agenda. So all about my email and Outlook agenda. This is my sacred piece of work. Just Outlook, nothing special.
No, Outlook.
We also use an internet site whereby to do conference calls, because I have half of my team away from the place I work, so we meet a lot through online conference.
Okay. Sorry, I may have missed it. Is there a particular system that you use?
It's whereby. It's an online site that you can do conference.
Interesting. There you go. And are there any books, podcasts, or blogs that you would recommend to us today?
Well, I have so many that I just have to cut some of them. Definitely Fitness Podcast, obviously.
Thank you.
I follow your podcast since 2015. I'm a follower of Paul Bedford, so I saw this. I believe the number 3 session.
Yes.
So it's really useful for the industry. I do present your link in my training presentations in Portugal. So it's and our management teams from Portugal listen to the podcast when they travel. So it's a huge resource for us. I do also look at I'm a huge fan of Ursa, all the resources that Ursa puts on the internet, and also I have some books. I will talk about 3: The Inevitable of Kevin Kelly, about the future of society and technology. One of my, I think, the man who writes more Bibles in fitness is Thomas Plummer, with fitness and making money doing it. And the final is outside business fitness is Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell. So new way of looking at success. That's my books and podcasts I will recommend.
Amazing recommendations. And I just want to take the opportunity to say an extra special thank you, because for us to, or for me to be able to speak to you, someone that's listened to the show for such a long time, since the very early days, thank you so much for being a listener for so long and for sharing that with all of your network, because that's how we get the show out there. That's how we're able to reach more of the fitness industry. So thank you so much for all of your support, Jose. We're very grateful, and I'm so thrilled that we're transitioning you from listener to special guest.
Yes. So, I'm really honored to be a guest. Really honored.
It'll be fabulous. And it's such a great topic we're talking about. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to you and just tell us really briefly the topic that we'll be focusing on during your main interview.
It's really simple, at the same time complex. I will focus on customer experience. The vision is how to get people to stay longer in your clubs. So it's really a simple phrase, but it tells a lot about your business if you have a strategy of getting people to stay longer. So that's my main work at the company at SC Fitness. It's all about that. Obviously, it's complex the way you do it, but it's simple. At the end, the metric is simple. You just get average lifetime to measure if you are going the right way or the wrong way. So that's the main focus on my talk today.
Excellent. I think this will be such a great topic to talk about, because obviously you are immersed in this. This is your full-time job, and I know that you collect a lot of data around customer experience and utilize it within your team and speak on it in the industry. So I'm really excited to dive into that topic with you. So Jose, thank you for joining us today for the Pre-Call Quickfire 5.
Thank you.
FBP family, I chose this week's Rewind show because I figured while we're talking about money, let's stick to the theme. And this particular show was one of our most downloaded in 2018. The show I'm talking about is episode 188, featuring Rachel Cosgrove, 3 ways to make more money in your fitness business. During the interview, we talk about 3 ways to make more revenue in your business, how to increase your prices each year, and tips for getting new members into your club. If you missed that episode, then go along to today's show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com and in the search field type 188. On Thursday, March the 19th, 2020, you'll have the opportunity to join friends and colleagues at the annual FBP Family Meetup at URSA 2020. Starting from the lobby of the convention centre at 6:30 a.m, we walk and talk for 60 minutes, sharing experience, ideas and stories. Everyone from the FBP family is invited, and we would love for you to join us on the day. We would also love to know who's coming along, so please jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, go to the top of the page and click on the tab called Meetup, then register your details for the URSA walk. If you need any more information, please email me directly at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you for joining me for this week's show, and a reminder that all the resources and links for today's episode can be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you to our founding partner, Active Management. Active Management are a fitness business coaching company that help clients all over the world. And this month, I have a business tip for you all. Join the Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group, and you'll meet like-minded fitness owners and managers from all over the world. All you need to do is go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. It's a highly engaging community where JT from Active Management shares loads of resources. Things like photos from inside gyms, reasons to exercise, a monthly book club, challenges, and even ideas under $50. It's free and it is an awesome community. Once again, just go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. Thank you once again for joining me today. Enjoy your week ahead, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others.